So today I'm going to be talking to you about how to not write a chapter one. Okay, this book in here is called Halo. It's called Halo. It's by Alexandra Adornetto, and it is a romance book. Okay, and in this book, angels come to protect the world, and one of the angels, there are three of them, and one of them falls in love with a mortal, okay, and that is not supposed to happen, and so it creates all of this shenanigans, all of this trouble, all of these problems. The first chapter in this story is called Descent. Now let's really talk about this chapter because it's actually very good. You might say, hey, if it's very good chapter, you know, especially if it's very good chapter one, why are you including it in this series? By the way, you can check the rest of these videos in the playlist, How to Not Write a Chapter One. It's a whole series. But essentially, the reason why I'm including this chapter in this series has to do with how, even though this is a very good chapter one, the book is terrible. It goes to show just because you wrote a chapter one, and number two, it goes to show that just because you wrote a good chapter one does not, okay, it does not mean in any way whatsoever that the book will be good, because you see, every chapter you write has to be good for you to write a good book. If you write a good book and then you start writing a new book, you have to earn another new good book, because you could write a terrible book as well. This is why someone with a prolific career like Stephen King, who has written so much, you know, like for every one word I have written in my life, probably he wrote a million more words, right? This man has written so much and he wrote so many books, and God knows how many of those that are unpublished, right? We already know he's an insanely prolific author. You look at someone like Brandon Sanderson. These people are extremely well practiced. They are extremely, remarkably well practiced, okay? And despite that, every time they read a new book, they have to earn that book. They have to fight that book. The battle never really ends because you wrote a million words or because you just got published traditionally. The battle continues, and it always continues. If you let your guard down, you will lose the battle. Someone like Brandon Sanderson has not let his guard down much, but there are books of his that are not necessarily as good as other books, right? You look at Stephen King. He actually wrote quite a good number of terrible books. He happens to have published way more compared to someone like Sanderson, but the point still stands. You have to fight every book, and you have to win the battle every time. Because you won a good book does not mean you won the war. The war is to have a great career, and you are going to have to fight for 50, 40, 60 years for you to have a great career. So in this book, Halo, Descent, I had to actually DNF it in chapter 5. I was very curious because, you know, a mortal falling in love with an angel. That just sounds awesome. That is very, very cool. But it quickly just got out. It just quickly became extremely uninteresting. It quickly became repetitive. The premise lost its momentum, right? Narrative momentum was just completely lost. It becomes a dull drag, slow dull drag of just people staring at each other. And that just became unbearable for me. But this chapter one goes to show how to write a chapter one in general. In the sense that in here we have the first. You remember in Twilight, when I made that video, essentially, if you haven't watched it, it's fine. I'll essentially recap the problem with chapter one in that book. The chapter is inefficient. It does not get to the point. It does not start at the point. It essentially, you know, meanders all day, on and on and on. For the Fifth Sorceress, another book whose chapter one I reviewed, in fact, the first 200 pages I recommended to be completely cut. Okay, yes, which is insane because chapter one should start 200 pages into the book. That is how bad the case was with Fifth Sorceress. It was a billion times worse than Twilight. But with Halo, what we have is a very good case of where to start a story. It starts here. Our arrival didn't exactly go as planned. I remember it was almost dawn when we landed. You know, these are angels and they landed, okay? Because the street lights were still on. That's how we know it's done nice. We had hoped our descent would go unnoticed, which it mainly did, save for a 13-year-old boy doing a paper round. Now that is amazing. Look at that paragraph. That paragraph is one of the most beautiful paragraphs I've read this entire year, despite this book being so bad that I had to DNF it. Okay, remember, you know, just because you won one chapter doesn't mean, yeah, like you can look at a book as a war, and then you can look at your career as a war. Each chapter in a book is a battle. You have to win every battle to win a good book. And in your career, each book can be a battle, and your career in entirety can be the war. And so you have to win each battle in order for you to actually to win the war, you know, very well, okay? He was on his bicycle with the newspapers rolled like batons in plastic wrap. It was misty and the boy was wearing a hooded jacket. He seemed to be playing a mental game with himself to estimate exactly where he could get each paper to land. The prose in here is very good as well. In fact, the prose in this entire book is not bad. One of the reasons why it's good is flow and also variety. So, she does not repeat the same sentence structure over and over, and she varies the length. The length of the sentences is essentially, there's good variety in there, and on top of that, the word choice, it's not overloaded, but at the same time, it is good enough to cast a vivid image. And so the chapter goes on and on and on, and it ends on a very, very high note. By the way, it's very short. It's a very short chapter. It ends on a very high note, right? Gabriel is right, Ivy added. Eva, our brother's ally, we are not ready for human contact yet. I think I am, I said, because she's kind of in love, So the others are not ready. I think I am. She's kind of in love, which is very crucial for the story. I turned back for a final look at the boy, and the boy is the subject here. He was still watching us and still smiling. This is brilliant writing. This is phenomenal writing, okay? This is how you write a chapter 1. This is the inciting incident. This is an introduction to the world. This is an introduction to the plot. This is a promise. This establishes the tone. It does everything a chapter 1 is supposed to do. It literally does everything a chapter 1 is supposed to do. It's the perfect chapter 1. But the book is awful. I had to DNF it. I'm sorry. I did not like this book. It was so painful. I just could not. Why the heck would I bother with it? I can read so many other good books. So I hope you enjoyed this. Tell me what you think of this particular discussion. Have a nice day. Bye.